trashes Canada again, while premiers argue over whiskey. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
There he goes again. U.S. President Donald Trump is shaking up Canadian politics, this time with comments about free trade with Canada. Trump says the United States doesn't need it and doesn't need Canada.
I don't even think about USMCA. I mean, I want to see Canada and Mexico do well, but the problem is we don't need their product. We don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars made in Mexico. We want to make them here. And that's what's happening. Everybody's moving here. From Canada, they're coming here. From Mexico, from Japan, from Germany, from all over the world, they're coming here. They're opening up their plants.
Trump made those remarks while he was touring a Ford motor factory in Dearborn, Michigan. And later during that tour, he said he doesn't really care if the free trade deal with Canada and Mexico gets renewed at all.
You don't think you're going to renegotiate USMCA?
Well, I can. It expires very shortly, and we could have it or not. It wouldn't matter. I think they want it. I don't really care about it.
So it might go away. So you're talking about getting rid of USMCA and let it sunset?
No real advantage to us. It's irrelevant to me. Canada would love it. Canada wants it. They need it. Because we don't need Canada product. That's the thing. I want to be a nice person, but we don't need. I want to build the cars here, not in Canada. We used to build cars in Canada. Now, the Canada cars, the Canadians are moving here to build cars. Same thing with Mexico. Same thing with Japan. Japan's paid us billions and billions of dollars for the privilege of making cars here and selling cars.
Later in the day, during a speech to the Economic Club of Detroit, Trump boasted about the success of his tariff policy and how tariff is one of his favorite words.
Recently, I said, tariff is my favorite word in the whole dictionary. There's no word. And I took a lot of heat. They said, what about your wife, your children? What about religion and God? What about Jesus? So I said, all right, it's my fifth favorite word. And since then, I've been fine. They hit me hard, these people, the fake news. They were killing me over tariff. He likes tariff more than his wife, more than religion. He likes tariff more than anything. What a disgrace. So I now call it number 5, and I'm in good shape.
Trump's comments about Canada's free trade deal with the United States and Mexico comes as Prime Minister Carney gets down to business in China. He's there until the end of the week. China has tariffs on Canadian exports as well, on canola, peas, pork, and seafood. China imposed those tariffs on Canada after Canada put a 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs following the United States. There have been reports all week that those EV tariffs could be on the bargaining table in these talks in exchange for tariff relief on Canadian agricultural products. Ontario Premier Doug Ford isn't happy to hear that.
I'm very concerned, and so are my friends in Michigan concerned. When you have China coming in at a low cost of EVs, is concerning. We as everyone knows, those parts go back and forth between Ontario and Michigan 7-8 times and get assembled in Michigan or get assembled here in Ontario. And when you have the Chinese government wanting to dump cheap Chinese parts and cheap vehicles here, it cost the Canadian and American jobs. So I'm absolutely 100% dead against this. I have not talked to the Prime Minister. I will speak to him and tell him our concerns. And this is nothing against the folks in the canola business or soybean. We have a thriving soybean business here too. So it's not about them. I fully understand why Premier Moe is concerned, but he's protecting Saskatchewan. I'm protecting Ontario. The 500,000 jobs in the auto sector, that's what I'm focused on. And it works back and forth between Michigan and Ontario and many other states. So it would not be good for Ontario and Canada, and it sure the heck wouldn't be good for the U.S., and it wouldn't be good when it comes to negotiating with President Trump.
Doug Ford also finds himself at odds these days with the Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, over Ford's decision to pull all the Crown Royal whiskey from the shelves of Ontario's liquor stores, the LCBO. Premier Ford made that decision after the parent company of Crown Royal, Diageo, announced it would close a plant in Amherstburg, Ontario. Crown Royal is distilled in Gimli, Manitoba, and Manitoba farmers support the production at the Gimli plant. There are worries that Ford's decision could mean job losses in Manitoba. Wab Kinew called on Premier Ford to change his mind during a tour of the distillery in Gimli.
We understand, Doug, that you get fired up and you say things in public, but we also understand that you do the right thing when you have a chance to reconsider. And I'm asking you to reconsider because this is about sticking together as Team Canada. We know that we're standing together against the U.S., but a house divided against itself cannot stand. We got to stick together as provincial leaders. We got to stick together as Canadians.
But so far, those pleas are falling on deaf ears.
Are you still planning on taking Crown Royal off the shelves?
Sure as I'm talking to you, that Crown Royal is coming off the shelves.
That Crown Royal decision from Premier Ford is also facing harsh criticism from Conservative MPs in Manitoba and from the union that represents the workers at Crown Royal, both in Manitoba and Quebec. The UFCW calls Ford's decision an attack on workers that threatens their livelihoods. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Still about 2 weeks to go before MPs make the trek back to Ottawa. A little longer than that until Conservative Party members gather in Calgary to talk policy, vote on the performance of the party's leader, Pierre Poilievre. Garnett Genuis is the Conservative MP for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, and he is the official opposition's point person on employment issues. The jobs report was out late last week, and there was a noticeable slowdown in the number of new hires. Welcome back. It's great to hear from you again today, Mr. Genuis.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
There seems to have been a noticeable slowdown in hiring. According to last week's report from StatsCan, employment across the country was little changed. Job vacancies also down, fewer job ads. And once again, the youth unemployment situation took a downturn. The youth unemployment rate in this country, 13.3%, higher than the month before. What did you take away from that report?
Well, more bad news, sadly, in the jobs numbers. This is a 0.3 increase in the unemployment rate overall, a larger 0.5% increase in the youth unemployment rate overall. That total increase in unemployment is 73,000 Canadians who are 73,000 more Canadians who are now struggling out of work, looking for work to provide for themselves and their families and not able to find it. So this is concerning, and this is reflective of what I've been hearing traveling across the country, talking to young people, talking to employers. The situation is continuing to worsen. In the fall, we put forward a conservative jobs plan, a series of constructive proposals, asking the government to take those ideas on as part of their approach. And unfortunately, we haven't seen them take up our ideas, and so we're continuing to see the situation we're seeing.
All right. Give me one or two of those ideas. What do you think the government should be doing that it's not doing?
Yeah, so our jobs plan was unleash the economy, fix immigration, fix training, and build homes where the jobs are. So unleash the economy, a lot of things you've heard us talk about before. We need to be removing barriers that prevent investment, supporting our natural resource sector through the repeal of Bill C-48 and Bill C-69. We've called for a reinvestment a bonus effectively in our last election platform, that any that dollars that are immediately reinvested in Canada would not be subject to capital gains taxes. And we've been hearing, as my parliamentary committee has been studying the issue of unemployment, just about how the red tape and the challenges that small businesses face in starting and growing are holding back job creation. So that's number one, unleashing the economy. Number two, fixing immigration. We need to actually align our immigration system with the interests of this country. And a poorly managed immigration system under the Liberals has really exacerbated competition for entry-level positions. The third issue is gaps in training. And here, unfortunately, we see the Liberals moving in the wrong direction with the budget. While we have a lot of unemployed young people, we have other areas where there is a need for people with specific skills. And yet the Liberals are making career colleges ineligible for student grants. So their proposal in the budget is that students who go to a private for-profit career college would not be eligible for student grants. So another example of the government moving in the wrong direction. We should be supporting all career training, especially that aligned with the needs of the labor market, not arbitrarily defunding these career colleges.
I want to ask you about gig work.
Yeah.
The report last week said there are almost 700,000 Canadians using platforms like Uber, Skip the Dishes, Airbnb is another popular one. StatsCan says these gigs, they're usually done as second jobs. People do it to earn extra money. But 700,000 Canadians. What do you think of that trend?
Well, I think there's a lot of changes in the way people work, the way people interact as part of their work that are driven by technological change. Some of that is inevitable, but I also think that as you pointed out, a lot of this is people that are struggling so much financially that they're working 2 and 3 jobs just to get by. And a previous jobs report did highlight this phenomenon of people working multiple jobs, and just talking to students, young people as well. At different levels, it's really striking to me that you've got a lot of people that are, if they're working, they're just trying to work multiple jobs because of the affordability crisis, and that creates more pressure in the job market, obviously, right? If people are working long days, multiple hours, that likely leads to someone else not having a job.
And we'll be right back with more questions for Garnett Genuis, Conservative Member of Parliament. Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, his riding. About the labor market and a few other things when we return. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Garnett Genuis with us, Conservative MP, the employment critic for the official opposition. Report after report, I read all of these reports, as you can well imagine. Report after report from StatsCan on the labor market keeps showing that the sectors with the strongest hiring seems to be healthcare and social services, indicative of public sector hiring. But what do you think is behind that trend, sir?
Well, we have now the largest public sector ever. That's what we're seeing in the latest report. So it's a good thing for you to identify. And I know there continue to be a lot of frustrations with the quality of healthcare. All the same, there's a lot of people in this sector who are working very hard, but they face a lot of significant challenges. So we see the employment numbers pushed up by public sector hiring. Meanwhile, private sector job creation continues to struggle. So that is another kind of concerning sign about the health of our economy. The wealth needs to be created in the private sector in the first place.
I have to ask you about stuff that's the buzz in Ottawa, as you can well imagine. Can't have you on the show and not ask you about what's going to happen later this month in Calgary. Ottawa is always buzzing about the possibility of another MP leaving your party after what happened late last year, crossing the floor, joining the Liberals. We've had reports of people being approached and turning down the Liberals, one from your party, one from the New Democrats as well. Do you think the Liberals are done trying? What do you think?
Well, I think, unfortunately, this shows a really unprincipled streak in the Liberal Party. I mean, these are people that ran for other parties very recently, and I think the Liberals are just kind of what they're trying to do is get a majority through backroom skullduggery that they were denied by the Canadian people. And I think Canadians should be concerned that this is happening and concerned about what they're trying to do. But look, I think we're going to have a strong convention. There's strong support in caucus and among our members for Pierre Poilievre, for continuing the momentum that he's established, for building, learning, and growing under his leadership. And I think Canadians are looking for principled arguments about the common good. They're not looking for politicians that are just willing to recouple with whomever out of their own self-interest. They're looking for people that are going to stand for principles and for convictions, and that is what the Conservative Party offers.
So you would say your caucus is united behind Mr. Poilievre right now, and you're confident that he's going to still be the leader of your party after the convention concludes in Calgary?
Yeah, I'm quite confident in that. Look, it's going to be an exciting convention, and there are lots of different things that are discussed: policy issues, constitution issues. The leadership vote is that leadership review process is part of what happens at a convention. I'm quite confident he's going to do very well. He has the support of our caucus and of the membership, and I'm quite confident that he'll do well in that.
Okay, thanks for the time today. Good to hear from you again. All the best.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, Garnett, Genuis, Conservative MP, is riding Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta. I'm Rob Snow. Our Newsday political panel is coming up next. Our panelists say one from Alberta, one from British Columbia, and a pair of high-profile resignations today that we'll talk about, along with the Prime Minister's trip to China and many more things, all ahead on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's our Wednesday Newsday political panel. Kevin Deagle is Vice President at Crestview Strategies. He's originally from Alberta. How are you, Kevin? Good to hear from you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Josie Sabatino with Summa Strategies, originally from BC. How are you, Josie? Welcome back.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, great to hear from you today. Boy, there's a lot going on. At a time when there's usually not a lot going on, there's a lot going on. What do you think, Kevin, about what you're reading in the political news media about what's on the negotiating table as the Prime Minister now gets down to business in China? EV tariffs maybe on the table in exchange for tariff relief on agricultural products. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think what I'm seeing is a sense of realism. This will be a first step in improving the relationship with the country after years of strained relations. I'm not seeing a lot of folks who think that there will be a huge announcement coming from this that will completely reset that relationship. But what I'm also seeing is that it's clear that there is a majority, if albeit a slim majority, of Canadians that are supporting a stronger trade relationship with China. I think it's about 54% in a recent poll out to Canadians. And it's helpful here to remember that this is Canada's second largest trading partner and the second largest economy in the world. So in my opinion, we need to be clear-eyed about the risks of engaging with a country like China, but also realistic that they represent a massive market for Canadian goods. You mentioned the products from our farmers, particularly canola farmers and canola growers. That's a key piece. On the other side of the ledger, however, is, again, like you mentioned, electric vehicles. This is a significant trade irritant. Canada levied 100% tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, and I expect this piece will be the key negotiation point across the table for much of the conversation, but it certainly won't be the entire piece. It's not all economic. There are security sensitivities and other pieces that will be discussed as well.
Josie, what do you think?
I think we need to take these headlines at face value. I mean, Carney is attempting to walk the tightrope of diversifying the trade with a country that in the past has shown they don't respect the core values of our Western democratic society. And I hope the outcomes at this table actually there is something to announce here, because what we're doing is putting ourselves in the line of fire, not only as we attempt to negotiate with China, but with the U.S. as well during what we expect to be hostile CUSMA negotiations. So I think that there is a short-term play here. There is an understanding that diversification needs to happen, but we need to also be realistic about who we're working with and what the opportunity costs are here. I also think there needs to be a broader conversation just around the impacts of China on Canada in the past few years, specifically around the issue of foreign interference, which dominated headlines for a long, long time and resulted in a number of recommendations from the Hague Commission that still haven't been implemented. So how that gets circled, that square gets circled with all of these factors at play, I think is anyone's guess. But there is a lot of pressure on Carney here as he attempts to make good with China while also dealing with the other ramifications that could come from this.
Okay. Josie, do you think that's even going to come up? All the issues you just mentioned, whether it's human rights, foreign interference, do you even think that's going to come up?
I think we'll see certainly a line about that in the media press release. What that means in actuality, I don't know. I don't think the Prime Minister is going to have a serious conversation with China about these issues, and that actually results in any real takeaways or tangible actions.
I will be interested to see what happens on the EV issue. The 100% tariff on made in China EVs, because if there is some movement on that in exchange for tariff relief, as you said on the Kevin, on the Western products, canola, peas, but also pork, for Atlantic Canada, it's seafood, billions of dollars worth. How does he break that to Doug Ford? And what would the Americans think about Canada? I mean, this is a big thing. What would the Americans think if Canada lowered tariffs on made in China EVs? I don't think they'd be too impressed myself.
It's a great question, Rob. I think that the risk is, and to Josie's great comment, that Carney is trying to walk a tightrope here. This is the tightrope where we're trying not to upset the Americans while also advancing forwards with positive trade relationships with China. But I think it's important to remember that just yesterday, Trump was in the media saying USMCA is irrelevant. We don't need Canadian cars. We don't need the Canadian auto sector. This is state of play right now, and we need to be operating within that sense of realism. And we can't operate out of fear that Donald Trump might get even more angry or think it's even more relevant. There's an avenue here that's interesting. If you look to what the Europeans are doing, they're in negotiations with China on the EV problem or the EV challenge, where they are essentially looking to set minimum import prices that are high enough to offset the unfair impact of Chinese subsidies that have supported their auto industry for decades. That will even the playing field and provide a fairer competitive landscape for European automakers. And that's a potential avenue that Canada could adopt. I think that anytime that we are advancing competitiveness in Canada, it's positive. We have some of the best automakers in the world. Our auto workers are truly the best in the world. And so if they're called to compete with new entrants, I have confidence that they can do so, provided the right safeguards are in place.
Yeah. But I think, Josie, the concern for Doug Ford is that it's not a level playing field. It's not a level playing field between, someone who is working in a factory in Brampton or Windsor or Oshawa or wherever it happens to be and is a member of Unifor versus somebody who's working in a Chinese factory making EVs for BYD. That's the whole issue.
That's exactly right. And that's why China can manufacture these EVs so cheaply, is because they don't have the same wage and human rights safeguards that we have here in Canada. And what I would be watching for from this is Doug Ford potentially getting hit twice. And that means once on the CUSMA side, and then again, if we do relax these rules on Chinese EVs, that could be devastating, not in terms of one punch, but two. So I think that he is making the right move and standing up for his province here.
Be right back. If anybody wants to resign, today is apparently the day to do it. We've had a pair of resignations announced today. One by the Premier of Quebec, Mr. Legault, and the Ontario Liberal leader, Bonnie Crombie, who is resigning again? I don't get it. We'll be right back. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Anybody want to resign? Apparently, it's all the rage today in Canadian politics. So Francois Legault, it's maybe not much of a shock, maybe waited a little bit too long to do it, but the two-time majority government winning leader of the party he really created, the CAQ, has now announced he's going to resign. He'll stick around until that party finds a new leader. He was once the most popular politician in the country, certainly one of the country's most dynamic. But the 8 years, the simple passage of time leaves a lot of disappointment in its wake. And as someone who has lived here the entire time he's been premier, I mean, I can point to all kinds of things. There was a massive IT scandal. How many times have you heard that when it comes to government? They wasted money trying to modernize. In the Quebec case, it was where you go to get your driver's license, trying to modernize that whole thing. There were hearings. They were on television every day, and the government seemed to be totally unaware of what was going on right under its nose. EV battery plant dreams that went down in flames. And I think getting into a really nasty fight with doctors in Quebec and doctors fleeing for other provinces. That was really the final straw for a lot of people. Just like other provinces, healthcare is a mess. Public education needs a lot of work. And all of this just accumulated, and there was no way the CAQ was going to win re-election in the upcoming provincial election, which is scheduled for this fall. Here's the big thing. Like, if you're the Parti Québécois and you're the PSPP, the leader of the Parti Québécois, PSPP, you can't believe your luck. Like, you are looking over here at the Liberal Party, and what do you see? They don't have a leader. And you're looking over here at the CAQ, and what do you see? They don't have a leader either. And we're 10 months away from an election. It's just an incredible turn of events. And that party is promising a referendum in its first mandate, the Parti Québécois. What do you think of the development? Sorry to kind of hog the time. Josie, what do you think of that news?
Well, I guess better late than never. Legault had very little chance of being successful in the next election. And the good news for the CAQ as they look to rebuild is that, Justin Trudeau left his party with less time on the clock, and Mark Carney managed to pull it off. So, maybe there's hope for the governing party as they evaluate the landscape and go into this leadership period. But I do think that there are some very real challenges on the table in the province, specifically around that referendum you mentioned and the possibility of, separatism being back in the media and being alive and well. So I think whoever comes in really needs to be able to pull together in a way that Legault did in the past, those kind of broad coalitions that don't necessarily always have a lot in common, and really try and hit the ground running to focus on the issues that are really impacting the province rather than going to those fray issues of separation.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the media reaction is and what some of the columnists are writing, particularly in the more nationalist newspapers in Quebec in the coming days. The CAQ is really Legault's party. He built it. I wonder if it's even going to survive. Any comments, Kevin?
My only real comment here is that I've got my popcorn ready. I think no one expected that 2026 would be boring, but I didn't think it'd be this interesting this quickly. You covered it really well, Rob. I think the doctor's piece really played a key piece in the resignation here. particularly Christian Dubé's resignation. That was just a very visible outlay of displeasure with the government, and it finally came home to roost. I'll be watching very closely to see how this leadership process goes, how the provincial Liberal leadership goes after Pablo Rodriguez's resignation. I think there's a ton to watch here. And like Josie said, if I was a PQ, I wouldn't be sitting back confident in celebrating this. I think the Carney model of how quickly he became Liberal leader federally and rose to power should be a bit of a warning to them. So I don't think this race is locked by any means, and it's going to be an interesting 2026 election year for Quebec.
All right, we do have to stop here. We'll be right back with our Newsday panel here on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Here with Kevin Deagle from Crestview Strategies and Josie Sabatino with Summa Strategies. Where do things stand right now with climate policy these days? It's in the news today. I'll be talking about this on Talkback with our callers. 2025, third warmest year on record. The New York Times had a big story a couple of days ago about the Trump administration backtracking on climate policy. Here in this country, backsliding seems to be the popular term. No more carbon tax, push for a pipeline to BC, no more emissions cap, end of the EV mandates, rebates. Tesla executives at Tesla told MPs on the Environment Committee, the government of Canada is dismantling its environmental policies. Is the fight against climate change over from the Canadian government's point of view? What do you think, Kevin? What do you think?
I don't think so, Rob. I think it's changing from the previous Trudeau administration's approach to it. I'd start by saying that climate change itself isn't over, as you alluded to. First time in history that we've had a 3-year average exceeding 1.5 degrees of warming. That comes with natural disasters like floods, wildfires, heat waves. On a global lens first, before I jump to Canada, I think however disruptive the politics have been, particularly to our neighbor to the south, the technologies keep improving. Renewables overtook coal and global electricity generation last year. Solar alone met 83% of new power demand last year globally. Last year, I think renewables supplied a full third of global power. So the headlines don't necessarily match how these technologies are just rapidly and steadily advancing in terms of cost competitiveness, effectiveness, and so on. I think the other piece that I'm seeing globally is that we're shifting from a lens of climate action, we need to do this to save the climate, to energy security. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a wake-up call to Europe, who really raced to end their dependence on Russian gas. Energy importing countries around the world are trying to end that dependence on imports, and they're doing so by trying to advance renewable energy production and switch to electrified technologies. Okay. So we're seeing all that move, but here at home, Mr. Carney's been clear that he remains committed to climate policy, and that will largely be driven through a strengthened, robust industrial carbon price that really reduces emissions in a way that it is competitive and supports industry rather than penalizing them. So he's willing to trade the former approach for regulations and kind of the stick side of things to really move for this other piece.
More of a carrot approach. Okay, let's get to Josie here. We're a little tight on time here. What's happening at the government level on the climate file, Josie?
Kevin's right here. It is a much more pragmatic approach that the current government is taking. And I think part of this is the fact that consumers do not want to take the hit on their pocketbook. That's why we saw the undoing of unpopular policies like the carbon tax, because the Conservatives were able to make the case that, Canadians were fronting the bill for this. So I think that is where this conversation is going. It's a trade-off between what we had seen as pocketbook issues versus investments in technology. And I think that is the safe space that the government is looking to play into in the current ecosystem and environment here.
Okay. I think just politically, it's just been overtaken as an issue by more bread and butter issues. Affordability. Josie, do you agree with that, just politically speaking?
For sure. And even if you look at the polling on this issue, I mean, environment and climate change has sunk way down the list of things that Canadians are concerned about right now.
I agree with you there, Josie. Thank you to both of you. We have to wrap it up there. Always a pleasure to hear from the two of you. Kevin, enjoy the rest of your day. From Crestview Strategies, Kevin Deagle, Vice President there, Josie Sabatino from Summa Strategies. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up next. We're going to talk about these reports on climate change. Third warmest year ever, 2025. Third warmest year ever. Fight against climate change. Where does that stand? This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
And welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic is the fight against climate change. The fight against climate change. It is in the news today that last year, 2025, was the third hottest year on record. 2 weeks into the new year, they've already concluded last year was the third hottest year on record, and the headlines are all over the place. The Associated Press runs with the story this way. Let me quote a little bit here. Earth's average temperature last year sizzled at a feverishly elevated level, a jump from trends of recent decades, but not quite as record-smashing hot as 2024. It goes on, quote, 5 science teams calculated that 2025 was the third hottest year on record behind 2024 and 2023. All of the last 3 years also flirted close to the internationally agreed upon limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming since pre-industrial times. That goal for limiting temperature increases established in Paris in 2015 is likely to be breached by the end of this decade. So in about 5 years from now. That's from the Associated Press today. From the public broadcaster in this country, quote, in the race to be the hottest year ever recorded by humans, 2025 lost by a hair. It came in third, 1.47 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial reference period, meaning that 2025 was 0.13 degrees cooler than the hottest year ever, 2024, and just 0.01 degrees lower than 2023. The heat, quote, was exacerbated by climate change driven by humans burning fossil fuels, and experts say greenhouse gas emissions must be brought down. The Independent out of the UK reports, quote, the planet experienced its third warmest year on record in 2025, underscoring an unmistakable trend towards a hotter climate driven by human activity. And, quote, scientists confirmed the primary driver of global warming is human activity, mostly burning fossil fuels. And finally, The Guardian out of the UK, quote, last year was the third hottest year on record with mounting fossil fuel pollution behind exceptional temperatures. The unnatural heat is largely the result of a blanket of carbon pollution smothering the earth, worsening most weather, and jeopardizing the stable conditions in which humanity has thrived. As I say, all over the news today. Sounds like a big deal. Is it a big deal? 1-833-668-2577. 2 years ago, hottest year on record. 3 years ago, second hottest year on record. Last year, third hottest year on record. What do you make of that? And there are these types of stories in the news as well. A couple of days ago, the New York Times ran a very lengthy story about the Trump administration and how it views the fight against climate change because it does not seem to be all that concerned. The headline was, under Trump, U.S. adds fuel to a heating planet. And it said this, quote, by pulling the United States out of the main international climate treaty, seizing Venezuelan crude, and using government power to resuscitate the domestic coal industry while choking off clean energy, the Trump administration is not just ignoring climate change, it is likely making the problem worse. President Trump has never been shy about rejecting the scientific reality of global warming. It's a hoax, he has said, a scam, and a con job. The move follows one of the hottest years on record, during which scientists say climate change supercharged raging wildfires in Los Angeles, deadly flooding in Texas, and a Category 5 hurricane. That was in the New York Times on Monday. Time ran with a similar story, saying 2025 was the year everything changed in the fight against climate change. How 2025 broke the traditional climate agenda was the headline. And here in this country, a frequent term in our news media since Mark Carney became prime minister has been backsliding. That Canada is backsliding in the fight against climate change. And it's Mr. Carney doing the backsliding. One such story said, quote, the federal government's recent memorandum of understanding with Alberta included a deal to build a new crude oil pipeline, suspend clean electricity regulations, scrap the cap on oil and gas emissions. This comes after a slew of policies reversing Canada's previous climate commitments, including the consumer carbon tax, anti-greenwashing legislation, and measures aimed at supporting household electrification. While the CBC reported the new Mark Carney government has pulled back on key climate policies during a crucial time, largely due to backlash from people concerned with affordability and industries focused on competitiveness. And it points to Mark Carney axing the tax, ending the EV sales mandate, oil and gas emissions cap. And then there's just everything we've lived through. Just last year, drought, fires, smoky skies, heat waves. Provincial governments banning people from the woods because of concerns about wildfires. So here's what we want to know today. Just a few questions for you. When you hear a story like last year was the third hottest year on record, is that a story that concerns you? Or are you not concerned with a story like that? Are you alarmed at all that the Carney government has ended many of the Trudeau-era climate policies, like the aforementioned EV sales mandate, EV rebates, oil and gas emissions cap, consumer carbon tax, might approve a new pipeline, make changes to the West Coast tanker ban? Does any of that worry you? Or do you think that's a good change of heart and those are good decisions to make because they promote economic growth? And given the extreme events of 2025, droughts, fires, smoke in the air, heat waves, is Canada ignoring the warning signs of climate change? Or are we overreacting to historically normal weather? Have your say. It's a big topic, a lot of meat on that bone. Love to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that and we'll make your call a priority. And let's talk about the fight against climate change, or some might say the lack thereof. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Climate change, our topic today. Midweek Talkback. Lots of news reports saying 2025, third hottest year on record. The third hottest year on record. When you hear a story like that, last year, third hottest year on record. Are you concerned by that? Not concerned by that? Are you alarmed at all that the Carney government has ended many of the Trudeau-era climate policies, might approve a pipeline to the BC coast? What do you think? Droughts, fires, smoke in the air, heat waves. Are we ignoring signs of climate change? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. 3 lines available. Lots of time to take your call. Mike is in Kincardine, Ontario. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Rob. I'm going to make 3
Mike.
points here.
Sure.
I have bought a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, saved a bunch of money. I don't use that much gas anymore because 85% of my driving is all electric. and the other, it's nice when the engine comes on. I've also had, when the 25-year-old furnace and air conditioner gave up the ghost, I put in a heat pump and a what they call a hybrid furnace thing. Have I saved money? Yes, big time. I think the biggest mistake the federal government did was marketing this as climate change, and instead of marketing it as you're saving a heck of a lot of money. The second thing I think what just needs to be done is looking at what the other countries are doing. If you look at the Environment Canada website, India, China, Indonesia have doubled their emissions since 2013. Even if Canada went to zero in that time period, it wouldn't have made a difference. So that's why I'm kind of cynical about this, unless these other countries are going to start reducing it. Now, last year, China, for the first time, reduced their emissions. And the third thing that I'm saying here is, okay, everybody hated the carbon tax. I think it would have been accepted more if they would have built public transit, they would have invested in carbon capture, or invested in actual climate reduction. It wasn't. It was a tax grab, in my opinion. So am I alarmed? A little bit. Am I optimistic that we'll be able to solve it? No, because what Canada contributes is minuscule. And if you think out there, which I call the enviro-nutters, they think they can convince China and India to reduce their emissions, I think they're peeing into the wind, let's say, because they won't.
All right.
And
okay, Mike, thank you. You've got us off to a good start. Thank you. Let's move along here to Calgary. We go. Peter is on the line. Hello, Peter.
Well, thank you for taking my call. You're doing
Peter.
a bit of a survey, so my input is I'm not alarmed at all. You know, I believe in science. I just no, I believe in science, but I don't believe in mad scientists. You know, if science is used in positive fashion, I'm on board. You know, photosynthesis is something that we learned about, 50 years ago, and that's truly ignored. You know, we do need a little bit of carbon in the air to make everything green, and everything green, feeds the people. So, that's lost in this discussion. I don't, I'm not alarmed that Trump has gone hard right and Carney's gone soft right on all of this stuff. So, anyways, that's my thoughts. And
okay, now this isn't. I'm just going to run this by you. Okay, I'm just going to run this by you because it's in one of the news stories today from Reuters. Okay, and tell me what you think of this. I'm just going to quote here. The long-established consensus among the world's scientists is that climate change is real, mostly caused by humans, and getting worse. Its main cause is greenhouse gas emissions from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, which trap heat in the atmosphere. You don't think that's true?
Scientists who are not on a payroll may have a different opinion. I think their opinions can be coerced, and maybe that makes me a cynic, but it doesn't alarm me.
You're not alarmed. Okay. So when you hear a story like third hottest year ever, and before last year, the two previous hottest years on record, I should say, were the previous 2 years. You're not alarmed by that at all?
No, records are only maybe 50, 60, 80 years, 100 years old. We don't have records going back to Adam and Eve. And climate has always been changing.
Okay, climate has always been changing. But they say it's getting worse. It's happening faster, and it's getting warmer. And they've never seen anything like it. But you're not concerned about it, and I'm not surprised to hear that today. Thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577. Have your say. Climate change. Third hottest year on record last year, 2025. Let's discuss it today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
When you hear a story like 2025 was the third hottest year on record, is that a story that concerns you or not? Are you worried at all about the Mark Carney government ending many climate policies, EV sales mandate, EV rebates, oil and gas emissions cap, the carbon tax, all of these things? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Are we ignoring the signs of climate change? Droughts, fires, smoky skies, heat waves, or people who are anxious about that are overreacting? What would you say? Let's go to Mike in Waterloo. First-time caller. Mike, thank you for calling.
Hi, Rob.
Hi there. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
How are you, sir?
Good, thank you.
I've been doing heating and air conditioning since 1989, and since then I've been listening. And Toronto 680 News, and then 98 we moved to Waterloo, and 570 Talk, and until about a couple of years ago, every time you folks will say the temperature, the daily temperature, you will also mention the record of the day. Since for the last couple of years, that record of the day is not mentioned anymore, and also it's made very difficult or impossible to find on the internet the record of the day. You probably are aware of that. And that is being done with a purpose. And that comes to...
What do you think the purpose is?
Which I don't believe anything they say. It's all about taxes and control.
Taxes and control.
Yes.
Why does the publishing of the weather record for that day, why do you think that's part of what you're alleging?
I can tell you 100% true that during the years since 1990 until the last 3 years, which they claim they've been the hottest, we had way warmer summers and more humidity than we had in the last 3 years. 100%.
Okay. Really?
I am an HVAC business, and this is what I do.
Okay. So when you hear a story that, and I mean, it's all over the news today. I read you the excerpts from some of the news stories. 2025 was the third hottest year on record. What do you think when you hear a story like that? Are you concerned at all about a story like that?
Not whatsoever, none. Just the last caller told you that about 95% of those scientists are on a payroll, and they cannot say otherwise. So the other 5% are the ones are telling the truth.
Really? Okay. Again, I read you the excerpt from the Reuters story that's in the news today. How the consensus is climate change is real. Humans are causing it, and it's getting worse. You don't believe any of that?
No. Why did they remove and why did they make impossible to search the records on internet?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they did that. I mean, you are right. It used to be, for example, right now I'm on Environment Canada's website for Kitchener-Waterloo. Cloudy and +1 right now. It has past 24 hours, weather radar, satellite, lightning, hourly forecast, air quality, alerts, the jet stream. It used to say the record high for this day, January 14th in Kitchener-Waterloo is whatever, +9. It doesn't say that today. It doesn't say it anymore.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
You know, it's 16 degrees in Calgary right now, 16 and sunny on the 14th of January. But they get those Chinook events in that part of the country, don't they? You won't find that, to the previous caller's point, on the Environment Canada website, what the record high for this day is, January 14th in Calgary. You can ask, as I did during our news break, my little AI assistant here, and it says the record for January 14th in Calgary was set in 2004 at 11.2 degrees. So record-breaking temperature today for our friends in Calgary. But climate change is our topic today, to the point, with news reports saying 2025 was the third hottest year on record. When you hear a story like that, does that concern you in the fight against climate change? Let's go to Hickey. He is in balmy, mild, sunny, warm Calgary. Hickey. Hi, Hickey.
Hey, just out here suntanning in our plus 16 degrees. So, yeah,
Very
it's
nice.
definitely going to be a warm year on record. Robert, just thinking about what you said, you know, I think with Canada, we need to be the solution for the Indias, the Chinas. You know, China's building coal factories still, coal plants still to create power, and we have all this LNG that we could help them with. You know, if we replaced every single coal-powered plant in the world with LNG, it would certainly help the environment. I think that when we're looking at, you know, where the environmental controls that the Liberal government's put in place, it's not about how can we help the environment in the entire world. It's just how can we try and suppress what's going on in Canada. And it's not going to make a big enough difference when other countries aren't. But if we can get our natural gas to the ocean and help a lot of these other countries out and create cleaner power over time, it will be better until we figure out what cold fusion looks like.
Okay. Thank you, Hickey. Send some of that this way, will you? It's going to snow for 4 straight days here, and it's going to feel like minus 30 sometime tomorrow night in this part of the country. So I'd take, 16 degrees right about now, plus 16. Let's go to Zach. He's also in Calgary. Hi, Zach.
You can hear me all right?
I hear you just fine, Zach. Good to hear from you today. Offer an opinion, please.
Yeah, for sure. So for the climate change, it is definitely a problem that needs to be addressed. But I feel like it's less of a problem on a federal level and more of a problem on the level of corporations. Just to challenge a point previously, not by Hickey, but from people before him, about like people buying out the scientists. That's something, when scientists are bought out, it's typically by a corporation that is pushing an agenda that would fuel their own well-being, and funding a study that would directly go against their own bottom line is not something we would see many corporations doing. Those kinds of things, that 95% that they were talking about, is just simply not the case. You mentioned from Reuters, trustworthy source, and one of the problems with it right now is not necessarily the levels of carbon in the atmosphere, because we have been shown from previous eras that this level of carbon can be maintained. But to do so, it requires larger amounts of the biosphere with plants and animals. And we are actively removing, for urbanization and for various other reasons, we are removing the greenery required to convert that carbon. So just capturing, there's not a whole lot on a personal level we can do, but it is definitely something that needs addressing.
Okay, so you're dismissing this idea because some of the callers have said, well, I doubt the claims by these scientists because their livelihood depends on them reaching these conclusions. You're disputing that. Is that what you're saying?
I am, yes.
Yeah, okay. So when you hear a story like last year was the third hottest year on record, are you concerned by a story like that?
Oh, absolutely. Like out in Calgary right now, as you just mentioned, 16 degrees, supposed to go up to 17 today. these are not the Januaries I remember growing up as a kid. It's the ones that we have right now, but we shouldn't be in this situation in the first place. But I think it's kind of going to be one of those things like the ozone layer was, where no one's really going to consider it a problem until it is a problem. And then when it's fixed, people just won't forget about it, and it'll turn into one of those kind of conspiracies.
All right. Thank you for your call. In the minority opinion so far, Zach, let's see if anybody's aligned with your way of thinking. Let's go to Pat, is in Kitchener today. Hello, Pat.
Hi. So my
hi,
view
Pat.
on this, my view on this is that when we look at these records, we really can't take them in isolation. We can't look at 1 year or 2 years. We really have to look at the trend and like take them in 50 or 100-year periods. Yes, right now we're in a trend where the climate is changing, where it's heating up. 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was the opposite. It was getting cold. And so we know that the Earth was a lot hotter than it was at this point in time, and life was abundant on the Earth. And so I don't dispute the fact that the climate is changing. I don't dispute the fact that the climate is increasing. I just think that it's normal. I do think also that humans are partially the cause of it, but I think that when it gets bad enough, we're going to have the tools at our disposal to fix the problem. If you look at forest fires in Canada, pull up a graph of the last 20, 30 years of forest fires in Canada, what you'll notice is that in 2020, when we had the pandemic, we had the lowest amount of forest fires in Canada. So that just leads me to believe that forest fires are not necessarily caused by climate change itself, but by humans being irresponsible in forests. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, the Canadian Press points out today, and I'll get into some of this, 89,000 square kilometers of forest burned in 2025, declaring it the second worst wildfire season on record, behind only 2023, a little more than 2 years ago now. In a story that outlines 5 ways climate change, driven by the burning of fossil fuels, is reshaping life in Canada and for Canadians. So I'll run down the bullet points and take more of your calls. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. We've taken lots of calls so far. Hope to take plenty more. Love to hear from you today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Climate change, our topic of the day. 2025, according to news reports, third hottest year on record. Does that alarm you? Not concerned by it at all? Let's talk about it with Doug in Halifax on Talkback today. Hello, Doug.
Hello, Rob. Good afternoon. Yeah, Rob.
Great to hear from you, Doug.
Good to hear from you. Good to talk to you, I should say. You're a Cape Breton. I'm from Nova Scotia. I'm from New Glasgow area. I lived in Halifax forever. And the temperature change, the temperature difference in between these communities as you drive along could vary anywhere from 5 degrees to 10 to 12 degrees in temperature. I don't know how they gather all these temperature readings to come up with a figure like that. I think when they come from Halifax, they give a reading from the Halifax airport. It could be hotter in town, I don't know, than the airport, but that's what they use. And I'm pretty sure that the hottest day ever recorded was in Death Valley in 1927 or thereabouts. It still hasn't been broken today, that record, that temperature record. What do you think of that? I don't know. I just don't buy their argument, and I don't know how they come up with the math that would come up with that, and what cities.
Okay, so when you hear, last year, third hottest year on record, you're not really concerned by a story like that.
Well, when they say that, how far are they going back? I mean, how far
going back to
they go back? Because
probably more than 100 years, maybe more than 100 years, something like that.
which
Sure.
which is really nothing compared to what the planet's been through.
Okay. Well, I mean, think about everything, but think about everything that people in your province have been through, say, over the last couple of years with fires and whatnot.
Yeah.
This year, last year, pardon me, your premier had to ban people from going into the woods. He was so concerned about that sparking a wildfire. They did the same thing in New Brunswick. What about something like the Tantalon fire? The Nova Scotia media was filled with people. Their wells were running dry because of the drought.
Yeah.
The farmers were having a heck of a time because of the drought. What about all stories like that in the news?
Well, I mean, we get a lot of people that just they ain't very careful. And that Tantalon fire was proven to be set by an accident. A woman was doing yard work or whatever, But 40,000 years ago, we were all ice here, Rob. Then we warmed up and kept warming up, and I don't know if it's going to go back or not. I think it will be, but because I saw something on TV one time, they said the Earth is going to click back on an angle wherever it's at, and we're going to go back to the cold. So I don't know. That's my thoughts. I think
so.
Pat
Again,
had it pretty much bang on. Huh?
Okay. So again, I'll read you this quote that's in the news today. The long-established consensus among the world scientists: climate change is real, mostly caused by humans, and getting worse. And it's because of greenhouse gases from fossil fuels. Doesn't concern you. Not troubled by it.
No.
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. Well, okay.
No.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Cambridge, Ontario. Sean is up next in Cambridge. Hello, Sean.
Good afternoon. I'm starting to think
Sean.
these people have.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm starting to wonder if these people have a vested interest in keeping the climate hot. I don't know. But these people seem to have a very narrow viewpoint of climate change. I mean, you just have to look around at your experience now versus when you were growing up. I can remember, when we first came to Canada, we lived in southern Ontario. We could pretty much guarantee snow for December. But it's not just Canada. Like you look at India, for example, they're looking at 50 degrees in Delhi. So, okay, it's great for us. Canada's going to be warm. We're going to have wonderful crops now. What about the rest of the world? Like India, we're looking at 50 degrees in Delhi in the summer. So we're going to be having climate refugees, and that will affect us. So, okay, you're great in Nova Scotia. Good for you. But what about the people living elsewhere in the world?
Okay, so let's talk about government action then, Sean. The Carney government, and Carney, made a name for himself as a real global climate warrior. He has now ended many of the Trudeau-era climate policies. I've mentioned them: EV sales mandate, rebates on EVs, oil and gas emissions cap, axe the tax. He's
with the,
he sounds supportive of a new pipeline. Maybe there are changes to the West Coast tanker ban. Does any of that worry you? All of that was done in the name of fighting climate change.
You're familiar with the German phrase "realpolitik"?
Yeah, we actually talked about that yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can beat your head against the wall at some point, like unless you're going to get okay, they talk about China, but China is actually a leader in EVs, and China is moving towards nuclear power. So they talk about Chinese coal plants. Yes, they still have a lot of coal plants, but they're trying to move away from it because they're finding their cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Fujian, example, are becoming unlivable. So they're moving towards cleaner energy, not maybe because of the heat, but because their cities are becoming unlivable. And India, I think, will eventually, because, like I said, 50 degrees is a long way, but Canada, as somebody's pointed out, is a drop in the bucket. So, for now, all we can really do is support these other countries.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sean in Cambridge. Good to hear from you. We'll stop here. Sam in Lunenburg, hang on the line. We'll get to your call and take more of your calls as well on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And the headlines say 2025... third hottest year on record. What do you think when you hear a story like that? What do you think when you hear a story like that? Does it worry you, trouble you? create climate anxiety for you. Let's go to Sam in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Hello, Sam.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Sam. Yeah. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Just good. Thank you.
Good.
For calling. What would you say?
Yeah, I definitely find it concerning. I definitely find the global trend towards warmer weather and, more severe storms concerning. I don't know how you possibly couldn't. But I honestly also find concerning the amount of people who have formed these opinions on climate change based off of, I don't know, something they probably read on Facebook, or maybe just their own personal thoughts or feelings. Like, when the vast majority of 90, I don't know what it is, 90, 95, 99% of people who study the climate, like meteorologists, are saying this is a real thing and we should be concerned about it. I don't understand why so many people just think that they're lying or making it up. It doesn't make sense to me. It blows my mind. These scientists
again, I want to as well talk a little bit about the policy front here, because
Sure.
again, we had Trudeau era climate policies that were at the heart of a lot of what that government was up to: EV sales mandates, EV rebates, gas emissions, clean electricity regulations, carbon taxes.
Yeah.
Certainly, wasn't open to pipeline development, impose that West Coast tanker ban. All of this is being undone by Mark Carney.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think of that?
Yeah. So, it's obviously it's not something you want to see when we're in, the middle of what scientists are calling a climate crisis. But, so on the one hand, it's definitely disheartening to see. But on the other hand, even the Trudeau era climate policies, we think of climate change and we look at one thing. Most of us, we look at CO2 output, and that's it. But the reality is that's a fraction of what's driving climate change and environmental destruction. There's so much else that has to be taken into account, and there should be policies regulating land use and agriculture and urban sprawl and urbanization. It's not just CO2 out. There are so many other issues that are not even being considered. And to see the one thing that governments will actually consider be rolled back is obviously disheartening. But
okay, thank you, Sam. Thank you. Yeah, they're playing the music. We got to go. The latest breaking news is coming up next. That was a very busy first hour, a whole other hour ahead. Let's dig a little bit more into this topic today and commemorate 2025, which was the third hottest year on record, according to news reports today. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
How hot was it in 2025, according to news reports? Third hottest year on record. When you hear a story like that, what do you think? Does it alarm you, concern you, worry you? Or are you not concerned, not alarmed at all? The Canadian Press has a longer story about the impact of all of this. As it sees it, the financial impact, the health impact. 2025 was the third warmest year on record. What does that mean for Canada? That's the headline. And it outlines, quote, 5 ways climate change driven by the burning of fossil fuels is reshaping life in Canada and for Canadians. I'll just give you the bullet points here. 89,000 square kilometers of forest burned, and the second worst wildfire season on record, behind only 2023. $9.2 billion in insurance losses, hail-damaged cars, flooded homes, downed power lines. The Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction estimates Canada now suffers an average of about $9.2 billion in annual losses from climate catastrophes. And of course, we pay for that. Higher insurance premiums. Has anyone's home insurance gone down in the last few years? If that's happened to you, could you give me the name of your broker? It says people die in heat waves. Montreal's public health department says 3 people died during a heat wave this summer. And in Toronto, there were 6 heat warnings between June and August, leading to 74 heat-related ER visits. Declining sea ice across both poles and higher food prices, like a 28% increase in coffee prices. It also cites higher prices for lettuce a couple of years ago. You remember when lettuce prices went through the roof, and that was all over the news. But let's get to our callers here on hour number 2 of Talkback. Welcome to it. And let's start with first-time caller John in Calgary. Thank you for calling, John.
Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, John.
Hey, how's it going? I would say the record's
very
not
well.
long enough. The record's not
Go
long
ahead.
enough.
Records are not long enough. Okay.
I have a number of books. One of them's The Climate Hoax, and a couple other books. And if you read those books, it puts into question a lot of the things that the mainstream is saying about climate, especially. I mean, CO2 supposedly is only 0.4% of atmospheric gases, and humans only account for a small percentage of that. And to say that humans can do anything to raise temperatures is kind of crazy. I think like one forest fire, human or caused by lightning, could totally disrupt 100 years of effort from humans to reduce carbon emissions, which is, and one volcano eruption. There's some people are saying that they take the temperatures closer to the cities, and the city temperatures are rising. Like, there's so much manipulation. And if you've ever heard about ClimateGate, the guy that wrote this and how it kind of all started, and the graph that you see was manipulated, and what one guy said.
You're talking about the hockey stick graph, Michael Mann and the hockey stick graph. Look, here's a question I have for you: a hoax, a scam, a con job. I heard all of this before. If it is all of that, my question has always been, to what end? Like, what is the motivation to perpetrate this hoax?
Well, in most cases, if you want to kind of go down that conspiracy road, is the cabal or the powers that be. The Rockefellers, like, they kind of control things from the top, and even governments are controlled. And it was like acid rain, and back in the day, Spock was on there saying, "Oh, the impending ice age if something doesn't happen." So all of this talk just creates like a siphon to take taxes from the people, destroy the middle class, and you can get into all that population control.
But why would they want to destroy the middle class? But why would they want to destroy the middle class?
Well, supposedly.
To what end?
Supposedly, some people think there's too many people here, so we need to get rid of some.
Too many people.
I don't know. So,
okay. All right. Okay. I'm just wondering. I hear this all the time. It's a hoax, which leads me to, well, why are they perpetrating the hoax? If that is the case, it's just a natural follow-up question. But thank you to Mike in Dartmouth, also a first-time caller today in Nova Scotia.
How are you today?
Hi, Mike. Very good, Mike. Thank
good.
you for calling. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Go ahead.
I got a question and an observation. I spent many of my summers in the Arctic, and the Ellesmere Island National Park, and I don't know the Inuit name for it now because they changed everything. 514 miles from the true North Pole, they found a piece of petrified wood in the cliff. Eureka, the northernmost post office, they have a piece of petrified wood in the building. Do you know where the Beachy Island is, where they found the Franklin expedition search team?
I don't know where it is specifically, no, but I'll take your word for it because it sounds like you're much more familiar with it than I am. So continue.
Well, it's just east of where Resolute was. Like I said, I don't know the Inuit name, but they, when they were exhuming some of the crew members, we went up by the cliff and we found a whole bunch of fern fossils. So the Arctic was tropical, in my opinion, at one point, and I just let you leave it at that, and you can make your comments if you want. And the other thing I would like to say is, if the climate change is getting warmer, don't we burn less fuel, which makes it better for the environment overall?
Well, I'm just going to quote. This is in the news today. The director of the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service. So this is an agency that develops this data set, which concludes it's the third hottest year on record. Says the atmosphere is sending us a message, and we must listen. Do you think we should be listening to the message that we're being sent?
I have no grief with climate change because the warmer it gets, the less fossil fuels I have to burn.
Okay. All right. So, but when you hear these stories, you're not concerned with it. You think it's
there has to be some balance in there. Yes, I agree with that. But to the effect that shut down all fossil fuels, we could use better fossil fuels, and develop wind energy and stuff like that. I got no grief with none of that, as long as I can. I just don't think that it's an issue. Well, it has to be addressed, but it's going to be a long-term thing.
Okay, thank you for your call. First-time caller there, Mike in Dartmouth, following a first-time caller, John in Calgary. We'd love to see it. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, let's get to Frank in Camrose, Alberta today. Hi, Frank. Thanks for the call.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Frank.
Hello?
Good to hear from you today. Yeah, you're on the air. Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you about a little experience I had way back. It'd be about, I was 30. With all the pollution and the smog in the cities and that, and, they're just starting this cleaner initiative. Anyway, I decided I took lights off my vehicle during the summertime from the spring to the fall and rode my bike and went to insure my vehicle. They said because I'd be treated as a new client, I had to pay the first time whatever fees. So there's no incentive for people to
be
really
more environmentally friendly or what have you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And plus another thing, I worked for one of the big cities here in Alberta as a mechanic. And I remember seeing on the buses, a bunch of us guys seeing on the buses for the first time, they had this clean air campaign. They put the posters on the side of the bus and that. And as mechanics, we'd be doing the work, but all of us are running, what is this? So one of the guys did get a hold of someone at City Hall, and they said, oh, yeah, this is a new program. It started about a month ago, blah, 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 and for clean air. But yet we weren't, doing any work to improve it, like tune-ups and all this year, modifying anything. And it was just all talk. And so it kind of, back then, I was very concerned because I've traveled a lot, seen all the pollution and the crap in the world. And, it just kind of, what's the use of even trying if they don't give you any incentive? It's,
I see. Oh, okay. Right.
And but
let me ask you, so we get these reports every year, Frank, okay? 2024, hottest year on record. 2023, second hottest year on record. Last year, third hottest year on record. you start to wonder, well, is there a trend here? Is this something to be alarmed about? Certainly,
I think it is.
You think it is. Okay.
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, the evidence is there. I moved out of Calgary to this about 60 kilometers east of Camera. And you know what? In a little town, there's no pollution here, but any of the naysayers, all they have to do is go into one of the big cities and look at all the smog. And I think to some of the biggest cities in the world, New York, Bangkok, and the smog there is just ridiculous. And it all comes from vehicles, all these burning vehicles. I meant, how do they justify that for naysayers?
Okay. So, so it kind of a follow-up, you see Trump moving into Venezuela. People think that's all about oil. Here we're, maybe on track to approve a pipeline from your province to British Columbia. Maybe there's changes made to the West Coast tanker ban. People say this is out of step. Some people say this is out of step if you want to take the fight against climate change seriously. What do you think?
Well, I got mixed answers on that because I've traveled quite a bit and seen, and they weren't canned trips. They're a lot of backpack stuff, and this is back a few years ago. But we have a problem with our country. But the thing is, I think with Trump, and I'm not justifying his actions, is the fact that look at China, look at Russia. I mean, if he put the rest of the world, that I don't want to learn how to speak Chinese or Russian or,
Right. Okay. Yeah. I understand what you're saying there, that there are big power politics at play that maybe we're not appreciating. Thank you for your call. Yeah, a bit of a phone connection issue. More of your calls still ahead. Climate change, our topic of the day, 2025, third hottest year on record. So say the scientists. What do you say? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So the headlines galore today. 2025 was the third hottest year on record. Last year, third hottest year on record. When you see a story, hear a story like that, watch it on the TV news, is it something that concerns you? Or are you not concerned at all with a story like that? Steiner in Halifax. Steiner. Hi, Steiner.
Hi. I must say that I agreed a bit with the gentleman that told us about the pieces of wood that was found in the Arctic. And if you look at what also helps to change weather is the oceans. We have a huge ocean in the world. And if the axis of the Earth changes, which it has done many times, and we know that the Arctic of Canada has been tropical at one time. And if the axis of the Earth keep changing, that changes also the currents of oceans. And I find that I have traveled to China for the last 32 years. And I did business in China, and I experienced the fog of pollution that they had from the coal-fired units that made electricity. And when you came out, now it is almost like you were in Canada. China has dealt with a lot of these things, and but we don't understand, and like many have said, we don't go far back enough in time. And it could have been things that happened with volcanoes, and it could have happened with other things that changed the atmosphere. And I think we have a long way to go before we know the truth about what could happen, because the world has been built on hydrocarbons. If we didn't have hydrocarbons, I don't know what the world would look like. But I enjoyed the show.
I've been reading this to a lot of callers, and I'll read it to you, Steiner, as well. This is in the news today from Reuters. Okay, it's just a paragraph in their news reporting on this story. The long-established consensus among the world scientists is that climate change is real, mostly caused by humans, and getting worse. Its main cause is greenhouse gas emissions from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, which trap heat in the atmosphere. What do you say to that?
No, I don't believe that.
No.
Because
you don't believe that.
The thing is that we don't know, but we have to go back further in time. And it is always easy to find something like this. And if we could manage to really know what is causing all of these things, it would be far easier than just blame something. And I don't think there is much more than 100 years that we have gone back. But if you go back and you look at why was Arctic tropical, there has to be a question for that too. How many years ago was that? And
thank you, Steiner. Got to run. The news is coming up, but I appreciate your contribution to the program today. More of your opinions and commentary as we once again mark one of the hottest years on record, according to the scientists. 2025, the third hottest on record. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Just some of the quotes from the stories that are in the news today. For example, in the New York Times, in its piece about Donald Trump and the Trump administration's reversal of many, many climate policies, it quotes Johan Rockstrom, director of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. He says, quote, "We are at the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel economy, and the U.S. is betting on the wrong horse." And he goes on to lament Trump's policy reversal on clean energy like wind and solar. I mentioned this quote in The Guardian today. Laurence Rouil, Director, Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service, which helps compile this data that leads these scientists to conclude that last year was the third hottest year on record. Quote, "The atmosphere is sending us a message, and we must listen." So what do you think? You hear a story like that. What do you think? Last year, third hottest year on record. Concerned, worried, losing sleep over it, suffering from climate anxiety? Or would you have other things to worry about these days? Like maybe paying the bills, affording groceries, the rent, paying the mortgage, putting gas in the car, you naughty boys and girls. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577 to Grant. Up next. Hi, Grant. Good to hear from you today. What's your opinion, Grant? Okay, let's go to Wayne in Foothills then. Hi, Wayne. You're up next, Wayne.
Hey, how you doing? I think we have to listen to, and I don't necessarily think we need the scientists giving us the numbers. We see it every day. It's like we've hit a record here today in the Calgary region and stuff like that, and we'll probably hit a few more. There's virtually no snow, but I think that the approach is wrong for climate change, and one of the things that you said earlier, I think, is part of that, where you said Carney is a global climate advocate, or whatever you want to do it, because Canada as a whole, not just the oil sands or whatever,
only contributes about 1% of total carbon emissions in the world. So I think the challenge is for people in Canada is why would we be the leaders in climate change and destroy parts of our economy to achieve that when it's just a blip on the graph, quite honestly. Because like China put up 94 gigawatts of coal plants in 2024. They say that they're converting to solar and stuff like that, but they're still building a bunch of plants. And now you've got the U.S. says drill, baby, drill, and they pull out of the Paris Accord. And so I think that the approach has to be more focused on where is the largest amount of emissions coming from and support those economies to become greener, because Canada won't do it. It doesn't matter if, and we're not, just because we become the champions at climate change doesn't mean we're not going to be affected by it anyway.
All right, Wayne, thank you. To James up next on Talkback. Hi, James. You're on the air, James. Yeah. What's your opinion? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you're talking about possibly, okay, never mind. Between 900 AD and 1350, England was growing grapes. They were actually exporting wine. Does England grow grapes and have wine fields now? No. It was called the medieval warm period. After 1350, the temperature dropped by a degree, and we ended up with a thing called the medieval cold period, the Little Ice Age. The Thames River would freeze on a regular basis. Do you hear about the river freezing in London every year now? No. And that was the coldest period in human history. So when you say that we're the hottest ever recorded, compared to what?
Well, again, sir, it's not me who's saying it. In this case, it's 5 different climate science organizations who are saying it. Don't pin it on me. I'm just reporting what's in the news today.
Okay, but it's only one headline. The real problem with this headline is that they had climate issue down in Brazil, and the entire thing basically collapsed, and nobody really cares anymore. So you need desperately to panic people. Now, you asked the question, if this is a hoax, why are they doing it? The money. Canada right now, if we're going to go for solar panels and windmills and everything else like that, the bill would be about $1.2 trillion. And the worst part is, 10 years later, you would have to replace everything for another $1.2 trillion. So if you get people panicked up, then you can say, hey, put on solar panels and electric vehicles and everything else. If they were being honest, they'd build nuclear reactors. That's what France did. Germany.
Well, that's what we're doing in this country too, in a big way. That's what's powering Ontario right now. We're going to spend megabucks to upgrade them, and probably billions more on SMRs.
Well, the SMRs are a completely different ballgame. We have 2 nuclear reactors in Ontario. They're over 50 years old. When people talk about nuclear reactors, they think about big, massive things. But in today, bear in mind, American aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines, those are the nuclear reactors that they're talking about.
Okay. Cheap. All right. I do have to go. I would say it's more than one headline, sir. I read, I don't know, almost a half a dozen right off the top of the show, and there are dozens more about this story today. That's why I wanted to bring it up with our callers. You shared your opinion. Others will have theirs, and I welcome them here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Climate change, our topic on Talkback today, with news reports saying 2025 was the third hottest year on record. When you hear a story like that, what do you think? Concerned, not really concerned? Ken is in Cochrane today. Hi, Ken.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Ken.
Just listening. I was just listening and had to phone in and correct a fellow who was actually conflating a couple of different things. A fellow that phoned in a couple of callers ago was saying that that we in the Calgary area are experiencing the hottest temperature on record. Well, that may be true for today, but as far back as 1962, we went from minus 19 degrees Celsius to 41 degrees Celsius in a matter of a few hours. And then, sorry, not 41 degrees Celsius, but 22 degrees Celsius in a matter of a few hours. So, I mean, that was 1962. We've been warm like this probably as far back as you can count. We do get Chinooks, and everybody should, I think, be aware of that in Canada. The long and short of it is that I'm not certain how much we are able to do, even if we are actually willing to do, even if we believe in climate change, and I do. But I also believe that there's very limited amount that we can do for it, or to mitigate it.
Do you mean just in Canada? You mean just as Canadians? I'm sorry. Do you mean just as being in Canada, 1.5% of global emissions? Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm sure that other callers have pointed the fact that when you have the U.S. doing what it's doing now, and has refused to actually adopt climate accords, and Russia and China, I just don't believe that. I think we're shooting ourselves in the head. And all I've got to do is drive down Stony Trail, or I could go to the 401 in Toronto, and or I could go to Europe. I've been the last 2 years. They're all driving huge SUVs. Not very many of them are electric in Europe. And you can tell that because they get issued a green license plate. Big BMWs, big Mercedes, they're all going 130 kilometers an hour, which is the posted speed limit on a lot of the faster roads in Europe. Nobody's serious about this. And I think that even if our governments had been serious, back in the 70s, I drove many half-ton trucks. I still drive a half-ton truck, but I was able to convert those to propane, and if the government, or natural gas, and which was much cleaner burning than fuel, diesel and or gasoline. And if the government had been serious, they'd have continued to support those types of initiatives. But they're not. And we've heard other people say that they're not, that governments aren't either. I just don't see that this is I mean, it's an issue, but I'm not certain that we're able to do very much of it about it. And there's an environmental economist, Bjorn Lomborg, that basically says, if we do everything that we're able to do, we're only going to push the effects of climate change back 6 years in the end. And we shouldn't really be making decisions on making ourselves poor. Should we do what we can? Yes. But should we make ourselves poor in the long run? No. That's his thesis, and I kind of think that that's a wise thesis. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. Gotta let you go. I hear your door dinging there. Glenn up next in Calgary today. Warm, sunny, balmy, scorching Calgary today.
I love it. But anyway, what I have to say is a person about 3 or 4 back talked about freezing in London. I forget where the hot temperatures were. What we need to do to really trace back what's happening with the weather is go through all the literature we have for the last, we can go back 5,000 years in some areas, and see what's happening when they mention plants, animals, etc., as well as when they mention clothing and so on, and actually calculate. Now, from what I have been able to calculate with some friends of mine, and we did this years ago, there is a general sweep that happens. It takes about 600 years from getting to the hottest, to the lowest, and back to the hottest. And that is always there. That's part of the actual, heartbeat of the planet.
Yeah.
Now, our use of fossil fuels has increased. At that time, we calculated the swing by about 5%. If we get rid of all our fossil fuel problems, we'll only change the swing by about 5%.
Okay. Again, I come back to this, and I thank you for your call, Glenn. We're really tight on time here. The long-established consensus among the world scientists is that climate change is real, mostly caused by humans, and getting worse. From Reuters News today, the main cause, not the 5% cause, the main cause, greenhouse gas emissions from burning fossil fuels. In the news today, I'm just reading it as it appears. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, according to the news reports, 2025 was the third hottest year on record. 2024 was the hottest year on record. 2023 was the second hottest year on record. When you hear those stories, hottest year on record, what do you think? Are you alarmed at all? Joe, up next in Calgary. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure. What's your opinion?
You know what? I am concerned with what's happening because the intensity of the storms here, like in the Alberta area, it's getting worse and worse, right? I believe that 25 will turn out to be the fourth hottest year, and 26 here is going to be the hottest on record. That's my personal prediction. But anyway, I also don't think it's 100% entirely human caused. I watch all these shows like BBC Earth and what's happened to the planet over, however many millennium or whatever. And, we went snowball Earth. We had no ice on the poles, that kind of stuff. So I do believe it is somewhat cyclical, but I also believe it's partly caused by things like, you look at the intensity of the volcano eruptions in the last 10 years. It's went up almost exponentially, and those things belch out a huge amount of carbon, and nobody's talking about the sun. And you know what? I've noticed ever since about the mid-2000s, like 2010 and on, the sun has been acting really weird. Scientists are telling us it's doing all this funky stuff and everything. Well, I do believe this is partly caused by our sun, too. And they're not telling us the whole story because the global warming scenario fits in perfectly if you want to control a world population.
Okay. All right. Okay. There we go again. That's a popular scenario today. Not surprised to hear that, though. Chris, up next. We'll only have about a minute left, Chris, so you'll have to make it quick, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm listening to everybody here, and I just want to take it from another standpoint, just to kind of bring it into more focus. This is the same sort of thing that we saw when they were talking about high cholesterol and statins. And you can fudge numbers however you want to be able to fudge them in a study. And I know that one of the things that when you're doing mathematical models, and there's like several of them out there, but I think the Russian model is the best one right now, you're trying to fudge the numbers to align with what's happening. And in doing so, it's not necessarily you're predicting what's going to be happening and so forth. You're leaving stuff out. You're changing things. You're adding in different variables. You could have it so that, at the end of your calculation, you're going to minus 12.8, and that's going to give you your end factor, and that's going to be different than if you minus 12.2 and so forth. You can modify that in any way that you want to be able to modify it. So when you talk about scientists are saying that this is what it is, I could publish reports and I could leave stuff out, or I could have the data manipulate to what my narrative I'd like to be able to have my narrative on. And to do this, especially when you're talking and you say science has factored this in, here it is. You got carbon credits, which is another form of moving money around without actually having any currency, and that's something that's going to be used with this.
That's your minute. Sorry, we've got to run. We're back tomorrow with another topic on Talkback on News Radio.